Okay, this is part 2 of the 10 activities we can be doing during deer preseason. I want to make this really quick. I had ended the first part with talking about trail cameras, and I just posted one, as I stated in that previous video, and I'm going to leave it up there for over a month. So I'm not going to go check it every week, okay? But getting into today's video, I just want to go over some basics. I've done some research on trail cameras, some of the technology, and I've actually educated myself quite a bit. I thought I knew a little bit about trail cameras, but now I know quite a bit more. And hopefully I can share this information with you, because as hunters, we're using trail cameras as a tool to access the properties or the areas that we hunt while we're not there, and it collects data for us, and that can help us be more successful as we hunt. So the first thing I want to talk about is the PIR sensor. So that is your passive infrared sensor. So as most of us know, that is detecting a heat source. So when the animal is detected, it sends a signal back to the camera, and that's when you take a picture. Okay, so how the PIR sensor works, after I did a little research, it has 2 zones. So the animal walks into the zone 1, it creates a positive differential, and then when it walks out of zone 1 into zone 2, it creates a negative differential and sends that impulse back to camera, and you take a picture, okay? And as most of us know, you can look at camera manufacturers, and, you know, based on the camera design, you can get, 60 up to, I think I've seen as much as 90 feet or 80 feet in a sensor range. And used to, the cameras would show the range, and then they still do, but the ones I looked at today, I didn't see that. It just told me the distance. And for hunters, we want a wider range. Just remember, it's the application also. I hunt primarily woods, so if you're a woods hunter, you've got a lot of foliage all around. If your sensor can sense a deer or an animal 80 feet away, but you've got all these tree limbs and all these leaves in the way, when you take a picture, that's all you're going to get. So it doesn't really do you any good. Now, that extended range works very well if you're in an open area like a field, if you're taking pictures of animals coming into a feeder or a middle lick or something like that. But typically in the woods, it's a lot closer distance, so you can save yourself some money by looking at the application you're going to use the camera for. Most of the trails that I've got right now, early season, they're pretty tight. It's closed in. And quite honestly, 20 to 30 feet. And if I angle the camera just right, and then there again, I'm going on a high confidence level that I know what direction the animal's coming, I can get a good picture. And that 20 or 30 feet is probably the maximum space I'm going to get. Some areas I might get a little more, depending on the trees and the ground vegetation. What I've read, the lens can change how that PIR sensor is dispersed out in front of the camera. So look for your camera and make sure it's got a wide range, wide sensing range for the animals coming in. Okay, so once the animal breaks those 2 planes, and now we trigger the camera to come on, right? Well, once we trigger the camera to come on, we also hit our flashbang. And most cameras now, or all cameras now, have infrared flashbangs. And you've got no glow and you've got low glow. Now, the no glow is supposed to be very minimal flash, so you're not supposed to spook any animals. And the low glow obviously is slightly more than that, a slight flash. But there again, most cameras have a dark lens now covering the infrared flash or the infrared flashbang, and it keeps the animal, or tries to prevent from spooking the animal in that case. But there again, the difference between no glow and low glow, the no glow has a less optimum distance. Okay, so I will say this: if my PIR sensor, if my infrared sensor can detect an animal at 80 feet, but then my no glow LED is, roughly about the same, then you may or may not get the picture. I went and did some research, and I got a range from 10 to 18 feet. So in other words, your infrared sensor could detect an animal at 80, 82 feet, and then the flash, the infrared flash that we're talking about now, could have a range up to 100 feet. So 82 to 100, that's 18 feet differential. Some were a little tighter than that. So if you're getting pictures on your camera and you're not getting anything at all but a dark image, then maybe your infrared sensor is exceeding the distance of your flash. Now, based on what I saw, I didn't see any that did that, but you don't know. We really don't know how the function of the camera works depending on the lighting conditions. But I would think optimally, you would want your flash to have a greater distance beyond the distance of your infrared sensor. That way you're ensuring that you'll get an actual image versus just, the dark. Okay, so just remember that. So you got no glow and low glow. From my experience, I think trail cameras can spook deer. Sometimes I only get one picture of a particular buck, and that's all I see. It just depends. Deer have different personalities, so we just got to be careful. So now that the flash is coming on, when we take the picture, you've got the image sensor. Some cameras have one sensor, and some cameras have two. So just check with the manufacturer. If it has one sensor, then it's using that same image sensor for both day and night conditions. If it has two image sensors, then the processor and the camera will select which one to use, either the day or the night image sensor. And if you have a camera that has both sensors, it's going to be more expensive. There again, it's the application. To me, really close, my flash should be sufficient enough to illuminate the area that the animal's going to be in, and maybe one sensor will suffice, okay? So now we've got the flash going. The trigger speed is the time the animal breaks the infrared beam until the camera takes a picture, okay? And we've all seen the slow trigger speeds. We get the tail end of the animal, we don't get anything at all. A fast trigger speed, you might get the front end. There again, it's all application. If you're going to be in an area that's in the field or something, and an animal's going to be moving through relatively slow, you don't need a fast trigger speed, okay? If you're going to be on a trail and you've only got a small window, 20, 30 feet to take a picture, you may need a faster trigger speed. Look at the applications. There's no sense in spending a lot more money for a camera when the functions exceed your application, okay? So think about the trigger speed and that essence there. And then after the trigger speed, you've got the recovery time. So that's the amount of time it takes for the camera to be able to reboot and take another picture. And the way we get around slow recovery speeds is we do a burst mode. We shoot 3 or 4 pictures, but there again, after that 3 or 4 picture time frame, you still got a recovery time before the camera can actually be activated a second time. So if you got more than one animal coming through, say for instance you got a batch or group of bucks, you got one buck to come through, you may get a burst mode of the first one, but you may miss the second one. And what can affect your recovery speed? And there's a couple things I want to go over real quick. One of them is batteries. This is something I just learned, and the other one is SD cards, and this is something else I learned as well. So real quick on the batteries. It's fairly simple. We're all familiar with alkaline batteries with remote control cars or a flashlight. As the alkaline battery power decreases, then so does the performance of the remote control or the flashlight. So the car gets slower, or you have to be closer, the flashlight actually gets dimmer. Well, that will affect the camera's performance. So you're going to slow down your trigger speed, potentially slow down your recovery time. However, if we use lithium batteries, and this is what I just researched, lithium batteries actually hold the charge to the very end and then it just drops off. So there's not a slow decay of power over time. It's they hold the charge and then they drop. Okay, so then that means that the power or the functions of your camera stay at the same level till it turns off. Okay. The one negative thing about lithium batteries is they're usually about twice as much as alkaline, but some of the research I've seen, they'll last 3 times longer than an alkaline battery. So now that nets us about a 30% savings if you look at it from long term. So that's the alkaline versus lithium battery. So keep that in mind as well. The next thing is your SD card. And this is something I learned quite a bit. I never looked at the ratings on the SD card. Quite honestly, I shop for price. If they had to sell an SD card, and I look at how many gigabytes it would hold. I would try to get the larger gigabyte for the least amount of price. We need to be looking at the ratings. Some of the cards still have a digital rating from 2 up to 10, 10 being the fastest speed. So I can take a picture, but if my SD card can't write it, it's going to slow me down. So optimally, you want an SD card with 10. That's the highest. Some manufacturers are now going to UHS, which is ultra high speed, and that's in three different levels so far: 1, 2, and 3. 2 and 3 I think are a little extreme. That's more for the professional videographer. And the prices, if you try to look at one of these, they'll let you know real quick you don't want to spend that much money on them. But the UHS 1 is probably where we're at as far as hunters go. Gives us plenty of speed, right speed, and enable the camera to operate at an optimum level. Also, now they're putting a symbol U on the cards with a digit inside it, and that tells you the right speed. So you want to go with a UHS 1, and then on the U, you want to have a high digit on the right speed as well. If it's still using the digits 2 through 10, you want to go with a SD card with a rating of 10, okay? So don't let the batteries or your SD card negatively impact the function or performance of your camera. Okay, just to summarize real quick, today we went over the PIR sensor. That's your infrared heat sensor that detects the animal coming in. We also went over the infrared flash, no glow versus low glow. And then we went over trigger speed. Trigger speed is the time it takes the camera to take a picture once the infrared sensor detects the animal. And then we went over recovery speed, which is the amount of time it takes the camera to take another picture after the first picture is taken. So there's a few, I think, key items on trail cameras. A lot of times I think we overspend on a camera that, based on the application, far exceeds in abilities than what we need. We could probably go with a lower price camera with lower functions and less capability and still get the desired results. Just remember a few key things also. In early season, you're going to have a lot of foliage. So if you've got a long infrared sensor distance, but you got all these leaves in the way and maybe it can detect the animal, you're not going to get a picture. So make sure if you're hunting in wood situations, which is mountainous situations, is which I primarily hunt in, the camera's in an open area, you've got a high confidence level on the direction the animal's coming, and you've got it pointed in that direction also. Trigger the camera to start taking pictures sooner, okay? The trigger speed's great, but if it's only seeing the animal for a brief split second, you're still not going to get that great a picture. So try to point it in the direction the animal's coming. Be conscious of all of the foliage that's around that could block the area. Obviously, if you're in a field situation, it's not going to matter as much. And there again, I've got my own little nuances. I don't like my trail cameras in line with the ears, eyes, and nose of the deer. Some deer don't, it seems like it doesn't bother them. Another deer, I can tell they know something just took place. And like I said before, a lot of times I only get a picture of a buck once and I don't get it again. So sometimes I'll set mine, 4 or 5. I've even set them up as high as 20 feet up and aim them on the ground. Now, obviously, that's going to minimize the range of my camera, but at the same time, it's going to be more effective at preventing the camera from spooking the deer. So I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope it's beneficial to you. So get out there, get these trail cameras set up, get ready for deer season this year, and we'll see you next time.